Hey guys, I'm back with the 100 horror films in 31 days. I lost 2 days, Thursday and Friday. I think I talked about that in my last video that work just interfered. Unfortunately, it was even more painful for me because Friday the 13th I was planning to do try to marathon the Friday the 13th films, but unfortunately I was traveling like 16 hours total, so I watched nothing on the 13th, 12th and 13th. But I caught back up yesterday and got back on the horse, if you will. Right now I'm at 52 watches and 28 first-time viewings. So that's, considering I lost 2 days, that's really, I'm ahead of pace. I'm doing pretty good. First up was an Amazon Prime film called One Dark Night, 1982, directed by Tom McLaughlin, and it was his first directorial debut film. He had been a struggling scriptwriter and had worked on 1979's Prophecy, and he had also worked on Sleepers with Woody Allen. But this was his first shot at directing. Of course, he went on to do Friday the 13th film. The film is kind of a poltergeist type film, and ironically enough it was shot before Poltergeist, but due to production problems it wasn't released until 1983. It stars Meg Tilly and Adam West. It's a slow burn. Really the setup of the film, the first few minutes of the film, you see this doctor's apartment or house, and he's dead. The police investigate, and they find all these bodies in the closet. Come to find out that this Dr. Ramar is a psychic vampire. I love that term. Apparently, I learned the term after getting married. If anybody's married out there, then you'll know what a psychic vampire is. But in this film, the psychic vampire is taking the energy from these young girls and using it to increase his power, basically. He can transport objects and move things. His daughter is in high school or a sorority or something, and basically on a dare ends up at the mausoleum where his body is retained. And the mausoleum looks eerily like the mausoleum interiors from Phantasm. But a bit other than this stunt where they set up this Meg Tilly to stay in the mausoleum overnight, not a lot goes on in the first hour. The film doesn't really pick up until the last 20 minutes, and even then I think it was not too really, there was no, it's just a bunch of boo scares really, and it's not a very good outing in my opinion for Tom McLaughlin. But in reading the notes back on the film, apparently the editing and the post-production type stuff was taken out of his hands. So I'm not sure that we can entirely blame Tom McLaughlin for what is really kind of a boring, dull film, quite honestly. Next up, I dipped into Vestron's release of Waxwork 1 and 2. Starting with Waxwork 1988, directed by Anthony Hickox, and stars the classically well-trained actor David Warner, fantastic actor, and the cute, I think really cute, Catherine Foreman and Zach Gallagher. It's a cute film. It probably doesn't hold up to today's standards, but I think it's a fun film. David Warner basically plays a museum curator, and he has invited a group of kids over to his museum, and he's got devilish plans in and around basically taking their souls and killing them off, that type of thing. It's a fun little 80s horror flick. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The second film that Hickox did, which ironically enough, Waxwork 2, they didn't do a follow-up to Waxwork until 1993. But this one was a real drop off, and I've watched it a couple times. But the the repeat viewings, it's going down and down in my ratings as through repeat viewings. Waxwork 2 basically throws a lot more comedy into the mix, and all it is, it just degenerates into a series of vignettes spoofing some of the horror films and creature features that came out in the 80s. Like they did a spoof of Aliens. Um, they just did a number of little vignette spoofs that, I mean, it wasn't really funny. I mean, so the comedy, once again, we've got a film here where we're trying to be funny, but there's just not a lot of comedy to go around on that one. So I thought Waxwork 2 was really disappointing, and it becomes more and more disappointing every time I try to watch it. I barely got through it this time. This Vestron release is really, really nice. I love the slipcovers on these things. But you got both films. Probably all you guys have picked this up already. There's the internal artwork. It is a piece of nostalgia from the 80s. I mean, you really owe it to yourself, I think, to have this in the collection. But as far as the quality of the film, I think there was a real drop-off when we got to Waxwork 2. And then finally, 1970s, The House That Screamed. This is one of these films that kind of escaped my attention growing up and even later years when I got really into horror. That on the surface, you're thinking, well, this is another 80s slasher film, but it's actually a film directed by a Spanish director, the same guy that did Who Can Kill a Child, Nicholas Narcisco Serrador. And this is from 1970. It stars Lily Palmer and Mary Maud, who they're running a halfway house, basically, for troubled teens. It's a girls' reformatory type school, but the headmaster of this thing has a young son who's she coddles and really kind of indulges his fantasies quite a bit, and then you've got a series of murders that occur, and they're trying to figure out, well, you know, who's doing what. It's really more of a proto slasher spin on the Psycho. I mean, given the fact that it came out in 1970, it makes me think more and more that this is simply just an attempt to cash in on the popularity of the Psycho films. It was an interesting watch. There's two cuts of the film. There's the theatrical, which is like an hour and 35 minutes, and then there's the extended cut is like an hour and 42 minutes, which is the one I watched. And there's a couple scenes that were not in the theatrical that you can clearly see a drop off in picture quality. But overall, I think this Scream Factory release is a nice release. Both films are in HD, and then there's interviews with John Mulder Brown, who plays the strange little kid in this film, and then a Q&A with actress Mary Maud. I enjoyed it. It doesn't have a lot of kills. Again, and what kills it does have are more off-screen implied type stuff. But it's very visual. It's a very engaging film, and I thought the ending was well worth the sitting down to watch this. So I definitely recommend The House That Screamed from Scream Factory if you don't have this release. Certainly a taste of proto-slasher heaven. So that'll wrap up day 15 of the, I'm sorry, that's day 14. Day 14 of the 100 Horror Films in 31 Days, and I will be back again. I'm back on the horse, and I'll be watching and trying to hit that 100 before the 31st, or by the 31st. I doubt I'm going to hit 100. I'm hopeful I can hit 100 to 105, given I lost 2 days, but I'm going to need the day of the 31st, I'm sure, to get there. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Thanks.